So the first thing we're going to do to this is obviously switch it off at the mains, because we don't want to get any shocks, or that should all be isolated if the switch is off underneath. All of these cables, or a lot of these off these boards, have actually got to be dropped down. Most of them do go to the playfield. Generally, where these tabs are, it's they've been cable tied in, although on this one obviously whoever did the the cabinet restoration hasn't put them back. So we'll sort that out when we reinstall it. So it's a little bit of a mess in here. What I generally tend to do, and you don't really need to, because the cables almost go in place, you know, where they come off. It's fairly obvious where they go when you put them back, but I do tend to mark them as I take them off. You see that says J124 there. There's no need to put the J on, but I mark them all on the side with a Sharpie pen or whatever, just so it just saves a lot of hassle when they're coming back in. It's not so bad when you've got another one sitting next to it, so that you can plug them all back on, but that makes it a lot easier. So what we're going to do now is remove all of those plugs and just drop all the cables back down through that hole, and then hopefully the playfield will be completely disconnected. I have removed the panel that has the DMD display on it, just because it's out of the way. Then it's only a few wires. It's basically the cables here that go to the thing hand. Again, I've written thing on the end, the ones to the DMD display, and the earth that goes to the speakers, and also the speaker cable, which is actually on the backboard on the display itself, so that stays with it. So I'm going to get unplugging, and we'll come back later. So what I've done now is disconnected all those cables and pushed them back down through the hole there, so that they're all clear, and then basically separated them all. So this cable here is the one that feeds everything to the playfield, and then these cables here do everything in the back box for the switches, the flippers, etc. So basically when we lift the playfield clear, this is all going to come with it, and the rest will stay in. There are a few cables which I've put to one side here, and basically these ones just interconnect on the boards and between other systems, but now basically we've got two sets that are clear, and hopefully this should just all come out in one go. So now we've got all that prepared, we can lift the playfield out in one go. With these older machines it's quite easy because they just pivot like this, you don't need to pull them out, so this will literally pull straight up. I've taken off the rear playfield glass channel as well, because that gives you another inch or so, probably more than that, to get your arms down to lift this. So better to do it if you've got two people here, but as my wife isn't that willing these days, I've got to do it on my own. So get these cables here so that they're when you lift them they don't get snagged on anything, and then have somewhere prepared where you're going to put it down, because they're not the lightest things. So you want to do it in one lift, straight out and down on the floor without any messing about. So lean this forward and grab it from behind and just lift it straight out like that. Not looking very graceful there. And then straight down onto the floor, then it's easier to move it for where we're going to position it to swap everything over. And basically stick all the other bits you've got left over, all the back glass bits, all the spare wires, they can all go back into the cabinet and live there until we come to put it back in. Right, so we've got the playfield out, and now I've got it propped up on this workmate in my garage. This is quite a good height to work on it, and also it's good, I've got it secured, it can't actually go anywhere because of these clamps I've got up on the ceiling beams, which is quite good. But it's good from my point of view because I can get to both sides of it, so it makes taking stuff off a lot easier. Now if you get to this stage, this is when you want to start taking lots and lots of photos. When you come to put it back together, you'll find you can never take too many, because there will be bits that you think you've got photos of and you won't be able to find them, and you won't see where all those little posts go. I then tend to take stuff off for about half an hour or so, and then take another whole series of photos of all the areas that I've been dismantling stuff off of, because it's amazing, you know, all the little quirks you get. And obviously these days with digital cameras it's all free, so it doesn't really matter, especially around the back. I mean, you know, there's a massive amount of stuff there, all lots of tiny little bits and pieces. So as I disassemble it, I've just actually noticed that that's a nice bit of gaffer tape there. I think that's going to need a bit of good repair, a bit of welding needed there. Yeah, so basically now I'm going to start stripping it off. All the tiny little metal bits I'm going to place in a pot like this, because they're all going to go into the tumbler to get polished, and then all the other components, the larger stuff that we're going to keep, is going to get placed on the workbench there, so that they can either get cleaned up to go back on, and we've got some sort of sensible order that stuff has come off, so that we know we know what order to put it back on. And then once because we can get the wiring loom laid out and clean all of that up, etc., and all of these boards and all the silly little bits, and also start making a list of anything broken that we need to replace that we didn't have in the list of parts earlier. So that's it for now. I'll report back when we started stripping it down more. So as you can see, we're most of the way, or I'm most of the way through stripping the top off of the machine. Just to show you a few faults I've found so far. The top bumper, pop bumper there, has got no bulb in it at all. That's been lost along the way sometimes and somewhere and bodged up. All of these weldments have broken. That's quite common, to be honest. Most of them stay hidden and you never see that. And most of the, for example, I saw this one. Oh, yeah, it's just fallen off. Most of the sort of, I don't know what you call them actually, the yokes on the back of the pop bumpers are broken, and so we're going to have to order all new ones of those. They're fairly horrendous and knocked about really. I think this has been through the wars, this machine, over the years. There are a lot of worn parts. Found some interesting adaptive pieces. This has got a return lane put on top. That actually came off of the top there. They must have had problems with balls sticking there at some point, and obviously somebody screwed that on to fix it there. So we'll see what else we come across. So now we've got a stripped playfield, well the front anyway. Most of the stuff is still on the back. I've pulled off some of the major components like the bookcase, and all the targets I've pulled through, although I've left them connected just so that we don't get all the wires messed up afterwards. If you're a bit better at the wiring than I am, then you could probably disconnect all of those and you know where they go, but I'm not quite up to that yet. So as well as exposing a lot of broken parts, we can see just how worn this playfield is. It's been used for a long time without having a proper clean. It probably doesn't show up too well actually with all of that, but you can certainly see the damage to the inserts and the wear around the pop bumpers there. And you can fully see the wear on the in-lane back up there. So yeah, it's fairly wrecked. It's got to be said. It's well past salvaging, I think. So as I said, that's taken about 4 hours. So now we've got a bench full of bits. These have all got to be cleaned and we'll go back on. That's just a bunch of the old rubbers and that. They'll go in the bin. I don't know why I put them there, to be honest. There's a couple of bits we've got to weld up back there, as well as the thing on the back of the thing hand that we've got to weld up. This is the box of bolts that I've taken off. Now I'm going to stick them in my tumbler here. Now this is just a corn cob media in this. It's an excellent little tool for cleaning up all of these things. Those are 2 lines of Autosolve, just automotive cleaner. To be honest, all this stuff, this is just corn cob media. It's actually quite dirty at the moment, but what I'm going to do is get the worst of the dirt off with this media, and then I'll change it over to some cleaner stuff. So literally just tip them all in there like that. And if I can find the lid, I'm going to do all this one-handed. If I can just switch it on briefly, then all those bits will sink. Stick the lid on. And I can't find the top. Screw that down. And then switch that on like that. And basically they'll just go round and round, all the bits in there with the Autosolve and that, and they'll polish up like a mirror finish. and I'll probably leave them in there for about 4 days, so it's not a quick process, but that will give us a chance to strip down the rest of the playfield off the back and prepare the other playfield. I've actually noticed there are many bits that are missing off of the new playfield, holes that are drilled. For example, those are the 3 bolts that hold the solenoid in that work the pop bumper. Well, they're missing. All the little holes for the wire forms there are missing off of the other one, and more importantly, off the back of the new playfield, nothing's dimpled. So quite often they'll put all these little dimples in that will indicate where screws will go. So it's going to be a very complicated swap over. The only time I've ever stripped anything down this much before was my medieval madness when I clear coated it and took everything off. But then of course you've got the luxury of all the old screw holes like this, so that you can put stuff back in. But we're not going to have the luxury of that, so it's going to be a slow and methodical process putting all that back on. As well as that, I've got a big list of parts we're going to get, and one other thing this playfield's got, I don't know if you can see it there, if this will show up, but there's a lot of, I think they call that planking. It's just lots of lines that come up like a plank. You can see it down there as well, those dark vertical lines on there that just show where it's worn. So yeah, definitely a candidate for getting swapped. So that's it for now. As I say, I'm going to strip the rest of the back off, so I'll come back when I'm start that. Cheers. So now I'm going to start to prepare the back of the new playfield. I think, as I said earlier, there's a lot of sort of burrs and bits of wood where it hasn't been finished off properly on there. So basically I'm just going to give that a very light sand down with a sort of foam back sheet like this, quite fine. Just remove all these bits, you know, for example where it's been routed out and everything hasn't been taken out. There's some quite fiddly little bits, like all the greed inserts there have got tiny bits on. Basically just going to rub this down, give it a light key, and then just give it a coat of a product called Diamond Glaze, which Dulux make, which is an ultra hard sort of clear varnish. I'm only going to give it one coat because I don't really want to build up a good finish on it. I'm basically just trying to get it so that when the playfield gets lifted up, we don't get all the finger marks and that you normally get associated, and you know, also where all the pop bumpers fire, you get all the black dust and that, so it doesn't stick. It's that's all it's there to do really, is to stop stuff getting ingrained in the wood. So I'll give that a sand down and then get the old varnish on it. Right, so now I've got the playfield horizontal. I've basically undone everything on it, so now everything there should just lift off. I've removed a lot of the heavier items like the flipper assemblies and all the magnets out of the centre. I've cut all the wires and just labelled them because we'll resolder them on later. So basically this all should lift clear now and leave us with the bare playfield at the back. So we'll lift it out and see what happens. So now we've got all the bolts out, everything. I've rechecked it all, everything's labelled up, so we should be able to just, hopefully, the magic tablecloth trick, literally just be able to lift it all up. I've labelled most of the loom down here and taken lots more pictures so that we can see basically what goes to the right and what goes to the left. So there we go, that can all go off. I'll go and stick that somewhere to store it, and we can give all that a clean up later. Basically all the solenoid, or a lot of them, are still on there, and they're all still dirty, so we can go through all that before it goes and gets put back on, and give all the wiring a clean as well. I've heard of people actually sticking all the wiring in a sink and cleaning it, but probably wouldn't do it any harm, I guess, once it dried out properly, because it's all waterproof, but wouldn't try it myself. So there we go. Now I've got everything off, one of the last jobs we've got to do is all these pins that are put through from the other side of the playfield, which hold the pop bumpers, the solenoids on for them, have got to be knocked out. What I generally do is just spin a nut on there, so because obviously if you hammer the end of this to hammer it through the playfield, it will round the end off. If you screw a nut on so that the nut's all the way down to the top of this head, then you can just hammer them. Once they start coming through, they should pull out on their own. So, and obviously they need to be stored somewhere safe so that they can be put back through on the new playfield. So what I'm doing now is, as our new playfield isn't dimpled at all, I'm having to mark the position of all the holes. Now I've never done this before, so this is my method that I've come up for it. Basically I've cut out this piece of brown paper and just cut these holes out of it so that we know it's positioned right. It's stuck along this bottom edge, and I'm basically just peeling it back like this and going along all the dots, and with a point I'm just poking a hole. If I can zoom in and make this work, I'm poking up tiny little holes where all of these go. So for example, I'm pulling this back, it's a bit painstaking, and then marking where the light matrix goes there, and then just poking the holes if I can find it there. And I also noticed there was another one up there, so then I've got those two marked there, and basically I'm going to have to go all the way up and basically do the whole lot just so that I can get everyone marked on here. I'm not bothering to mark the ones that will that go all the way through the playfield, because these will I can actually use the whole playfield as a template and clamp the two together and drill those through. But these ones are really just marks to position everything. So then I will stick this on the new playfield, and hopefully all these holes will line up, and then I can just drill a small pilot hole with a sort of 2mm hole or something, and then hopefully everything will fit on. So that's the theory anyway. So this is a playfield now. I've put all the holes, I don't know if you can see that, in the brown paper there. As I've gone down, I've fixed some more masking tape on it just to make it more secure. And a couple of places I've made holes that shouldn't be there, so I've marked them with a bit of a black felt tip there so that I don't drill those holes as well. It's quite easy to check. I think it's been fairly successful, because as you peel this back you'll see the holes under the playfield there, and you know, like that bit we're looking at right in the centre of the screen, there are obviously two holes there. Well, as we peel it back you'll see two there, so they actually peel off of the holes, so it's quite easy to look at it now and check that they're in the right place. I'm going to cut this off now, cut all the masking tape, and place it on top of the new playfield, and hopefully it'll fit. I'm not worried. How about you, Graham? So this is the paper hole template that I made. Basically I've fitted it over the new playfield, which this is what it is now, and I'm happy all of these holes line up with the original one, which is good. Bit of a worry there for a minute. So now I'm going to go around and basically just put a light hole in each one of these holes. It's only a little 1.5mm drill. It's just a little pilot that will help locate all the parts, and also stop the playfield splitting like the original ones did, so it should be a neater job on it. So I'm going to go with that. I think there's probably about 150 holes, so it might take a little while, and basically when we've done that we can start on the front. Okay, I've drilled all of them. It probably took about half an hour to go through them all. I expect I've missed a few, but we can pick those up later. Taking the paper off, obviously. It all looks good. As I said, they're only tiny little holes now, so obviously those are the ones that work the slingshots. They all look okay to me with a quick check, but we'll find out when we come to fit it. So basically now we're just going to turn it over and do the same to the front once I've made a template for that as well. So this will be the more nerve-wracking bit, because obviously you don't get any second chances with the front, because that's the bit everybody looks at, but I'm sure it'll be okay.